He's one of our highest graded guests in the history of the Jay Recher podcast. 3+ months in, from our friends over at Joe Bucs Fan. He's got the Hall of Fame vote. He also decides whether you're cool enough to sit with him at the cool table in the press box at Raymond James Stadium. It's the one and only Ira Kaufman. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Jay, how can I translate those high rating marks into some kind of a monetary exchange rate? What am I getting out of that, Jay Bird?
We got to talk to Lee and Steve about that to see how we can do that, because I think that would be fantastic for
I'm just back from Palm Beach, Jay. Up and back. Quick trip. Went up on Monday. Went to the party Monday night. Heck of a party. And then Tuesday morning, 35 minutes with Todd Bowles. And then I walked right over to Raheem Morris table, which was 5 feet away, and asked Morris how he's going to chase down the Bucs with his beleaguered Falcons over there, Jake.
I like it. Before we get into the specifics of what was going on there in Palm Beach, it is for you, is a couple of days there, the informality of the whole thing, is that kind of like a throwback with everything is so structured nowadays, everything's at a podium? I like that you're kind of standing around talking to Jason, you're just sitting at a table talking to Todd Bowles. Do you enjoy that? Is it a little bit more of a personal level in an age now where everything is so technologically driven?
Well, there's no question about it, Jay, and some people might be a little surprised that this party, which is usually around the big pool, whether it's the Breakers or the Arizona Biltmore, it's open to the media, Jay. I hope it stays open to the media, because nobody brings in a tape recorder, Jay. They don't. They don't put their phone up to the coach that they're talking to or the GM. You said it's informal, and it is. I'll give you an example. I was getting ready to leave. This party started at 7. It was about 9:30. I'm going back to my hotel. Now, Jay, it goes without saying, I ain't staying at the Breakers. Oh, no. I ain't staying at the Breakers because it's $1,800 a night at the Break. That's for the Adam Schefters of the world. That's for the Jason Lichts of the world. They're all staying at the Breakers. I'm at the Fairfield Inn, 8 miles away, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to leave at 9:30. And I'm with Steve Isbitz, who I work with at Joe Bucs Fan. And he spots Sean Payton with his wife there and Diana Rossini, the three of them. And, Isbitz is always thinking ahead, looking for columns and, intriguing stuff. Well, he says to me, Jay, pokes me in the ribs, hey, go up to Payton and ask him if he thinks Levani David's a Hall of Famer. I mean, this is classic Steve Isbitz.
Yeah.
So, I'm there and, I get a suggestion. I'm going to act on it. But I don't want to bust in, 3 people having a conversation. So, Jay, within 5-6 minutes, Sean Payton goes over to the bar to get a drink. I make my move, Recher. I make my move. You've seen me in action.
Oh, yeah.
I pounce on him. And, and I ask him about Levani David. And Sean Payton says, look, first of all, anybody that's still playing at his age at a high level. And he mentioned Bobby Wagner because I think they're very similar, very, very similar. Now, Wagner's got the all-pros that David doesn't. But he said you got to respect the durability, the dedication, and he's still playing, great football. Isbitz leaves. He goes to get a shrimp cocktail or something. He comes back 20 minutes later, Jay. I'm still talking to Sean Payton, Rossini, and Payton's wife. He leaves. He comes back another 25 minutes later, and I'm still there, Jay. I'm still there. So we're talking about Hall of Fame. I told him some of my stories about how I got, helped to get Sapp in, and Keyshawn Johnson called. When I asked Keyshawn, does Sapp belong? He said, yeah, he belongs. He's an asshole, but he belongs. And I turned to Joey Johnston, who you know well, Jay. Yep. This is when the late, great Tribune was still around. And I hung up the phone with Keyshawn, thanked him. I turned to Joey Johnston. I said, I got my opening line for my Sapp presentation. He's an asshole, but he belongs. Now, the guy from the president of the board stopped my speech right there. He goes, now, wait a minute, Kaufman. Nobody's ever used that word in this room. I said I didn't call him that. Keyshawn did.
Yeah,
Don't blame me. So
shoot
anyway,
the messenger.
to me, Jay, my best takeaway from Peyton, who seems to be a great guy. I mean, he
Yeah.
does. And by the way, and this might affect your betting lines because I know you like to put some money down before the season starts. I think Denver's a team on the rise. I think they're a team on the rise. Peyton is a good coach. He worked wonders with Bo Nix last year. He says they're going to chase down the Chiefs in the AFC West. He thinks they're going to topple them. And the Chiefs have won 8, 9 straight division titles.
Right.
So anyway, Jay, I say to Peyton, what are you looking for in the draft? He doesn't hesitate. Most coaches, best player available. No. We need a running back.
Wow.
Which he does. So, Jay, I say to Peyton, boy, I sure wish you regret not drafting Bucky Irving, around before the Bucs got him. And he tells me this story, Jay, that he goes to Oregon's pro day. All he's thinking about, his total focus, is on Bo Nix. How's Bo Nix look? Can he do this? Can he do that? How's he in the interview? What's his measurables? What's the medical? And there's Bucky Irving. Yeah, we're working out. And Peyton says to me, I never noticed him. I never looked at him. All I'm thinking about is Bo Nix. Boy, I'll tell you, if the Broncos had a guy like Bucky Irving, who I think, Jay, you tell me what you think. He injected almost all the juice to me in the Buck offense last year. Certainly the running game in particular. Now, look, Rachaad White ran a little better, Jay, than he has in the past. But Bucky Irving is special. I think he's like a Jamar Gibbs, maybe a notch below, Jay, but that's high cotton right there. I love Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I think what he can do out of the backfield, what he can do in open space, the fact that he's not just a fast guy, he gets tough yards, he gets yards after contact. And you're right, like last year was a little funky when you think about it. We know for the second straight year they went down and come back up. But I mean, think about it, Ira. The week after they lose Godwin and Evans, they go into Kansas City and they take that team to overtime. Like, to me, that's the microcosm of the season right there. It was like, we got to lean on this guy. We got to lean on this. It shows Baker's growth. It shows what Liam Cohen was able to do. You look at some of the wins that they were able to have down the stretch, and having Bucky Irving be a part of it. Like, there was just so many. The Bucs had to dig deep last year, and I think they showed a lot of resolve. And I think that bodes well for them moving forward. You said this to me last year, at the beginning of last year, Jay, this team has been remarkably lucky when it came to being healthy. And then Chris Godwin gets banged up. I'm not putting that on you, Sage, but you're right. You're right. I mean, they've been able to kind of navigate through that. And now we get to a point of, all right, you kind of know what the team's looking like, and all eyes are on the draft in a couple of weeks. You spoke to Jason Licht. What do you get as far as that pick at 19? Are they out of the running for a pass rusher because they brought a Hassan Reddick in? Are they looking linebacker? Do you think corner? What do you think if Jason Licht had his druthers and there were 3 great options at those positions at 19? Which direction do you think he'd be leaning?
My impressions have changed in the last 3 or 4 days.
Oh, okay.
Being around people. I think corner might be the number 1 spot.
I am all over corner. I want Will Johnson from Michigan. I don't know if he's going to fall, but I couldn't agree with you more, Kaufman. You got to get a guy on the outside for this team.
Now, you and I like Zion McCollum, Jay. I got no problem with McCollum. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to get an extension a year from now, and I salute that. I've been chopping up Jamel Dean. It's like an obsession of mine. I even said it to Bowles off to the side. I said, I'm killing this guy on my podcast, Todd. I'm killing him. I said, he is what he is. He doesn't have ball skills. He's not going to develop them at this stage of his career. Not to mention, Jay, his durability is very much in question.
Right.
I got the impression, Jay, that while he might still be on the team, Dean, maybe, I don't think his hold on a starting corner job is very secure. I don't. I think they think they can do better. I think the feeling is he's okay. Okay is not good enough for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, Jay.
Agreed.
It's not. Speaking about, I've been talking about this Campbell kid from Alabama. Even though I gotta say, Jay, both Light and Bowles, and Buck fans are going to cringe when I say it, Jay, but it's true. They think Servassier Dennis can be a heck of a player if he stays healthy. I mean, a heck of a player. And we got to admit it, Jay, when he's played, which hasn't been that often, he's flashed some skills. He really has. He's fast. He's instinctual.
But do you think that's a shortcoming, Ira? Do you think that's a shortcoming of any coach or GM? Because they as much as they want to look about the whole team, I feel like sometimes even the best coaches and GMs, you fall in love with the potential of what a guy can do instead of being real and saying, like, if he's not available, it doesn't matter what he could do, Ira, because you can't be in that same position you were in 2024 that you will be in 2025. Because if he can't stay healthy, it doesn't matter what he could do.
Yes. Now they picked up a linebacker, Walker, which they also like him for depth purposes. And of course, Levani's back. And if David had retired, all we'd be talking about is they better get an inside linebacker.
Right.
But David can't go on forever. He can't. By the way, one quick thing more about Sean Payton. Yeah. And Jay, you were at the game, and I was too. The Bucs were 2-0. Here come the Broncos. They made the Bucs look really bad that day, Jay. Really bad. I think it was 26-7. Mm-hmm. The Bucs were never in the game, Jay. They weren't in the game.
Close. It wasn't even close.
And looking back at the 17-game season, the 10-7 record, I think you could argue that that's the only game that the Bucs were outclassed. Basically, was the Denver game. The Chiefs didn't do it. The Niners didn't do it. The Eagles certainly didn't do it. It was the Broncos. So I think Sean Payton's got something going on in Denver. As far as the Bucs, Jay, the one thing that they continue to be lucky about, and I'm not going to talk about the backup quarterback situation because I obsessed about it for a couple of years, and fans are tired of it, and they're saying, "Well, if you lose your quarterback, you're done." Jay, well, I'm not arguing that, but Jay, what if the guy's out for a month? What if Mayfield's out for a month? I don't want to go 1-3. I don't want to go 1-3. I want to go at least 2-2.
Right.
And the fact that this guy's thrown 11 passes on the pro level, Trask, it concerns me a little bit. But Jay, in terms of the health, the Bucs have had an incredible run under center. Mm-hmm. You got to go back like 7 or 8 years for a starting quarterback for the Bucs to miss a game due to injury. It just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Brady was incredibly durable. Mayfield's, 2 years doesn't miss a start, and even Jameis, he didn't get hurt. So they've been very lucky under center. I think this is a very good team, Jay. I don't say it very often. I like this roster, and they're going to bump it up a little bit on draft day.
What did you get from Todd Bowles about his assessment with the team? I like that he kind of called the team out a little bit, Ira. You got to have killer instinct. You don't want to hear that from your head coach. And you don't want to hear that on a defense that has Vita Vea. Because if I would have told you that that's what Todd Bowles said about the Bucs, I think people on the outside, well, you got Vita Vea, you got Levante David, you got Antoine Winfield Jr. What do you mean you don't have a killer instinct, right? And then I love that he's bringing in a game manager.
Yes.
I think, a lot of people wanted him running him out of town. I was one of the few people that was like, I am not quick at all to hand this thing over to Liam Cohen, because being an offense coordinator, being a head coach are two completely different things. But Ira, we got to give Todd a little credit here. This is a guy that is a veteran coach that is getting rid of some coaches on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in other coaches to kind of make up for some of his deficiencies. He's loyal, but he also knows when to move on, maybe a little bit longer. But I'd rather a guy be a little bit more loyal, because I think that bodes well in the long term. Right? If you know that a guy's not just going to throw you out with the bathwater, I think that helps free agents. That helps people wanting to come here. I think Todd has improved, and I don't know if he gets enough credit for doing so. What did you get from him when you spoke to him?
I saw a man, Jay, that is comfortable in his own skin, which I think is important, has his ego in check, and he's aware of his strengths and weaknesses. let's take game management, for example. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jay. Tell me what you think. But bringing in this guy from Jacksonville, I think maybe the Glazers might have played a role. I'm not saying they demanded it. I'm not saying they ordered Bowles to get some help there. But the Glazers, they're not dummies when it comes to football. May not know the X's and O's, but they know what's in front of them, and they're no fools. They know they needed a pass rush, and they know they needed help with game management. And Bowles embraced it. He did. I think he realizes, Jay, that an offense that averaged 29.5 points was kind of left in the lurch last season. That's on him. He accepts it. 7 interceptions. Todd, I just can't get over it. I can't get over it, Jay. 7 interceptions. Right. I mean, that's a good month for Diggs. The Cowboys. That is just awful. Now, part of it is the pass rush. Even though they get 45 sacks every year, Jay, every year with Bowles, they're going to end up with 45 sacks. But that doesn't tell the full story, Jay. It's the consistent pressure. And I even wrote a column today where I said, Bowles has been going over the tapes of every snap, 1,000 snaps last year defensively. When he came to the 2 Atlanta games, he had to reach for the mailbox. I mean, those games are haunting him, absolutely haunting him. You got an immobile quarterback like Cousins, who wasn't playing bad at that time, but he can't move, Jay. He can't move on a good day, never mind coming off an injury. And the guy's got 7 seconds, to play pitch and catch. I was at the game in Atlanta. I mean, it was just appalling. Buck fans, and you can imagine Bowles just looking at it. Here comes Reddick. Bowles is very high on Reddick and what he thinks he can contribute. Jay, one thing we can all agree on. Hassan Reddick is a motivated man in 2025.
You worried about him?
Rosenhaus has been telling Reddick, Jay, you want to make money next year? You better have a good season for the Bucs.
You worried about him in Tampa Bay or no?
No, he is what he is. I think he's going to get 11 sacks. I think he'll be negligible against the run. He doesn't really care about it. And like Bowles says, if a guy's a good pass rusher, that's what they're going to ask him to do. They're not going to drop Reddick into coverage in the left flank, nor should they. That drives Buck fans crazy, Jay. But you know what I think Bowles' attitude is towards that, Jay? Like last year, they're not getting there anyway, so I might as well ask them to cover a spot. I mean, that's not going to be the case with Reddick, and I hope Diaby bounces back from what I think was a little bit of a down year.
Yeah, I'm sick of the pressures. Don't tell me about the pressures. Give me sacks. Enough of the pressure. Almost is only horseshoes and hand grenades. I think the Hassan Reddick. I don't see how it can be not a great move for the Buccaneers for a multitude of reasons. I'm not worried about the Jets. That was a dumpster fire. I'm not blaming that on him. The fact that they traded for him and they knew that they weren't going to be able to sign him, that's on them. That's not on him. He was very vocal about that. I also don't think that Jason Licht and Todd Bowles bring him in here if they don't know what he can bring to the table, and vice versa. I think he knows what he's getting into. He's going to a defense with Levante David. He knows Mike Evans. He knows he's going with Todd Bowles. And there's proof of concept. He's had a one-year prove-it deal before with Carolina, and look at what he was able to do. He was able to parlay that into a deal with the Eagles. Everything is out in front for you for Hassan Reddick here. If he does fantastic and he signs a multi-year deal with somebody else, whatever. But he's here. You can rush with 4 hopefully now, and now Todd can get a little bit more creative. And then kind of going back into our cornerback situation, now you don't have these guys covering for a bunch. Now maybe you could play a little bit more press man instead of having to play so far off. People get pissed off like, oh, I can't believe they're playing off. They don't get to the quarterback. So if he's sitting back there slicing and dicing, I'd rather give him a 7-yard pass than a 37-yard pass because we can't get to the quarterback. But you mentioned the Falcons, and you wrote a great article on JoeBucksFan.com about we've got to crack the code. And again, everybody out there, check out JoeBucksFan.com, listen to Ira's podcast and everything. Stephen Lee and Ira, they never sleep, these guys. They're nuts. But Raheem Morris, we've got to crack the code. What does he think, Ira, is that secret recipe to finally usurp the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the top of the division?
I think he's thinking about pass rush. He doesn't seem concerned at all, Jay, about Michael Penix. They're all in on Penix. He says from Arthur Blank on down. We all believe in Penix. And he did some good things, Jay. He only started 3 games at the end of the year, but they averaged 32 points in those 3 games.
Right.
It's not his fault they don't have any defense. You think the Bucs don't have a pass rush, Jay? Have you seen the Falcons? I mean,
Terrible.
absolutely terrible.
Terrible.
They lose Grady Jarrett. That's not going to help them up front. They got to hit a home run, the Falcons. Now, they don't have the number 6 pick. They're like in the middle of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they take the green kid, and take a chance on him. I think the Buck roster is considerably better. I like their running game. Their offensive line, Atlanta. They got, Allegier's not a bad back, and Robinson's great. I think Drake London is really good, Jay. I like Drake London.
Yeah, so do I.
But they got nobody on defense. Absolutely nobody. But they did beat the Bucs twice, Jay, and that's shameful. Shame on the Bucs for losing twice to Atlanta.
Yeah, I did not buy the hoopla with them before the season. They brought in Simmons, and it was like, great. He plays the exact same position as your best defensive player, Jesse Bates.
Yeah,
so you got 2 safeties that just play well off the line. Like, all right, that's great. Go stop the run if you can. And then you bring in Matthew Judon coming off of a season-ending injury. And yeah, towards the end of the season, they had some more sacks, but I mean, did not make near the impact that you would think that you would need to if you're going to, take over and be a team in that division. Are you worried at all about the other 2 teams? I feel like this is a 2-dog race for the division with the Bucs and the Falcons, Ira.
Well, the early odds are out, and I pay attention after the draft when they post the over/under win totals from Vegas. But right now, the Bucs are at 9.5, and I think Atlanta's 7.5, which is a step down. Atlanta won 8 games last year. I think 9.5 is a little low, Jay, for the Bucs. I'm bullish on this team, and I don't feel that way every year like this team. Look how they played against Washington, Jay. The defense couldn't get off the field. Mayfield only got 7 possessions. 7. They scored on 4 of them. 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. Give this offense some more opportunities, Jay. That's another part of this whole defensive resurrection. And all of a sudden the Bucs are averaging 32 points. I mean, this is a really good offense, Jay. They got a great kicker. Irving's not going anywhere. He's not going to get worse. They brought the offensive line back. Mayfield's coming off a career season. I think Otten's coming on. I think he's a middle of the pack tight end. I think he might be top 10 before the season's over. Jay, I have confidence in Chris Godwin. If it wasn't Chris Godwin, maybe I'm a little worried. Maybe he's got to wait till week 4, but Godwin's going to do everything in his power, Jay, to be out there for week 1. He does what he does. He does the dirty work. McMillan came on strong. They might draft a receiver like in the 3rd round or something. Jay, this is a good Tampa Bay football team.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about Chris Godwin is that even if he's not 100% to start the season, nobody's going to panic. Everybody's going to be like, that's fine, Chris. Take your time. We got Jalen McMillan. If he would have went to New England or he would have went to Jacksonville, he went to these spots, and he wasn't wide receiver 1 in week 1, people would have been losing their minds. Here at home with the team that loves you, if there's a little bit of a grace period for him to kind of grow into the season, because we saw that a couple years ago when he missed, he wasn't, at 100% that next year. I don't think people are going to freak out because you have Mike Evans and that it's a long-term play.
Jay, one more quick thing, Jay. We were talking about the Buck defense. One guy we haven't mentioned, which he's a catalyst. He's integral, is Winfield, Jay. Winfield. I asked Bowles directly about him. Kind of a lost season for Winfield last year. If they can get him back to 2023, Antoine Winfield, that makes a huge difference, Jay.
Yeah, he's a guy that, you're usually looking for your turnovers coming, from the back end in your corners. It's usually the safeties for the Buccaneers, for sure. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about our good pal, Sam Rosen. 40 years with the New York Rangers. This is going to be his last season. They're fighting for a playoff spot. You saw our guy, Phil Esposito, go up there, John Davidson. They're actually going to call a nationally televised game on TNT, Sam and JD, which is going to be great. But, I mean, I know that's one of your old friends and just one of the best in the business. And people forget, too, there's a lot of Buccaneer highlights over the years with Sam Rosen's voice on it. He did a lot of Bucs games here in the Tampa Bay area. Just, a guy that's so influential to my career and a guy that I consider a mentor. Just your thoughts on Sam finally hanging it up.
I go back, you mentioned 40 years, Jay. I can top that. I go back almost 50 years with Sam Rosen, which tells you how old I am, Jay. And I go to one Lightning game a year. I go with Roy Cummings and Tom Jones. We used to cover this team way back when. And so we pick out a game. I picked out the Ranger game because they only came in once this year. I think it was late December, right. Jay. So I came, and I thought Sam might be downstairs, eating with us, but I saw that he wasn't. It was about an hour before the game. So I took the elevator. I took the freight elevator up. I said, all right, let me see what's going on. I get off at the floor, the media, floor, and there's Rosen by himself in one of those cubicles, and he's reading the stats and he's making notes. That's Sam Rosen, right, Jay? That's what he does. And familiarizing himself with all the key points that he wants to make that night, mostly about the Lightning, because he knows everything about the Rangers. Mm-hmm. And he turns around and he sees me. Well, what are you doing here? I said, I came to see you. I came to see you. Jay, I started my career, and I'm dating myself, 1976, Jay. You weren't even born. 1976. United Press International, which used to be the second wire service competing against AP, in New York. Our office was in the Daily News building with the Globe in the lobby from the Superman movies. Mm-hmm. That was our building, 42nd Street, 3rd Avenue. And here I am. I'm a clerk. I'm a sports clerk, just out of NYU grad school, 22 years old. And Sam Rosen is running UPI Audio, 1,000 radio stations across the country. And we got to know each other. Jay, we played on the softball team, UPI in Central Park against the New York Post and the Daily News and AP and the New York Times. Anyway, and Sam he was a good hitter. Sam could hit. And Jay, one quick story about Sam, which you don't know about, but about a year later, maybe 78 before Sam left UPI, he hired somebody. He hired a kid right out of college. Nobody ever heard of this kid. And Sam said, this kid's going places. Kid's name was Keith Olbermann. Mm-hmm. Sam hired him for UPI Audio. So I know Olbermann almost 50 years, but you talk about a legend, Jay, and he's not a homer. He's not a Ranger homer. No. He plays it right down the middle. Balanced, man. Nobody has a bad word to say about this guy, Jay. Nobody.
He's the man, the legend, Sam Rosen. Congratulations, 40 years there. It's again, those calls that it influenced me to get into this industry. So, and getting to meet him over the years, they say don't meet your heroes, don't meet your mentors, and I couldn't disagree with that more, because when you meet a guy like Sam Rosen, it is definitely.
I got one more for you, Jay.
Go ahead,
I'll make it quick. All right, Jay, I've been watching hockey for 60 years, and I'll say this. I haven't seen too many guys with better vision and better passing skills than Nikita Kucherov. I just haven't.
Just don't don't pass up empty net shots and everything will be fine. Everybody will be happy. Ira Kaufman, JoeBucksFan.com. Go check the guys out. Especially, we've got to crack the code. Crack that code with Ira talking to Bowles and Raheem Morris and everybody out there in Palm Beach. Great stuff. These guys are all over that. Why do they want Tyke Smith more conditioned, the Buccaneers? You'll find out over on JoeBucksFan.com. Tell Steve, Lee, and everybody I said hello. Ira, always appreciate your time, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Enjoyed it, Jay. Thanks.
Thanks, pal.